we know Sean isn't going to be able to make it. Let's go ahead and start this committee meeting.
Yeah, Treasurer and I proposed that Deb and the chief could go first and go on about their days, if you don't mind.
Not at all. So
Excuse me.
who wants to be first?
Well,
I guess the issue is the jail bill is up significant, and we figured you two are the two players that have impact on the jail bill. So we were just trying to get a good understanding of one, what's going on, and two, what can we expect for the rest of the year if this trend continues.
I can give you the front end part of that, and then maybe Deb can follow me up. When the jail bill first started coming to my attention, and it was really my focus because I heard about it all the time, and I could see that it had climbed significantly over a fairly short period of time, and it's still somewhat climbing. We're over budget, obviously. So I started looking at what the cops were doing a little more specifically as far as how we were handling people that needed to be arrested. And I wanted to see if we were conforming to the kind of standards that I think the police department should have. And in an arrest situation, the only time we would book somebody is if it's a requirement by Washington statute, such as domestic violence, those type of things, or felonies. You know, those are mandatory bookings. There's no discretion on the part of the officer. Then you'd have lesser offenses where the person has no identification, ties to the community. There would be a possibility, and it goes to the discretion of the officer on whether to book the person, and that kind of weighs out whether or not it's important enough to book them. There are some minor offenses. You may have somebody urinates in public or something. They're a transient. They're never going to be here again. You know, some of the time they don't even arrest those people. They just send them on their way. But if they do arrest them, they most certainly don't take them to jail because it serves no purpose. Another instance where you would book somebody is where you're in a situation, and if you leave, the problem will continue. So you have to book them because you have to remove them from the situation. Another instance where you have to book them is if they have a warrant, and it's an extraditable. If it's not from here, and the community outside of here says they'll extradite, we have to book them into jail. So I looked to see if we were following that trend, and we are. I mean, we don't book people for any other reasons, and we cite and release in almost every instance that we can. And in a lot of cases, even without proper ID and some of these other circumstances being kind of fuzzy, we're err on the side of let's get them a citation, get them out of there, and not go through this booking process. Because the booking process itself costs. And interestingly enough, I went to a meeting 2 weeks ago with Washington State Patrol representatives who are in charge of maintaining booking stats and that type of thing. And they're encouraging every department to book every single person that's arrested. And I was the only person in the room that said, look, that's not going to happen. I said, I have to be fiscally responsible here. And for me, a minor shoplift is not important enough to make sure. The reason they want them booked is if you don't book somebody and get them fingerprinted, it doesn't go on your criminal history. So they want, you know, the complete criminal history. And I told them I could care less about a complete criminal history when I weighed it out against the cost. So basically what I can tell you is what the police department is doing, number one, and I'll just kind of blow my own horn here, or the department's horn, our clearance rates are higher than any other law enforcement agency in this county. That means we're actually clearing crimes, and that creates arrests. The cops here are proactive. I require them to be proactive. Now, whether or not that results in more people going to jail, I don't know, but you know, it's easy to see that they're active. One thing that I did see was this city took on some very big magnets through the annexation. Walmart is a magnet for all kinds of things, whether it's in the parking lot, whether it's inside, whether they call us, whether they don't. You know, I can have cops get out there at 3 o'clock in the morning and walk through the building and you can see a crime in progress, or you see something that's unusual in the parking lot and it's gonna create an arrest situation. And actually, I'm kind of proud of that because it shows that we're being proactive, and sometimes it's a pain because we end up arresting serial criminals who go throughout the county or this whole Puget Sound area. You know, the liquor thefts I can bring back. You know, we'd end up stopping the car because they're stealing from our Safeway, and we had bottles from every place. And it's like 5 days of work trying to sort all that stuff out. But the bottom line is, I don't know of anything that the police department can do to affect the jail bill, other than bring you the Forks contract, which is coming up tonight. We got that squared away. It looks like it's going to be a long-term thing, and that would be a good thing as long as we can utilize that. Is the trend going to continue to go up at the rate that it? I don't see that. I think the trend maybe at least will plateau, I think, this year, and possibly go down. I looked at our crime stats just came out for 2015, and we actually took about 9% less reported crimes last year in Port Orchard, which is pretty good comparatively speaking. Poulsbo's went up like 27%, so maybe they can be the Facebook dangerous city. But you know, for here it's kind of plateaued out, and I think we're getting into a good zone where I don't see it going up.
I guess, you know, my question in relationship to the Walmarts and the Fred Meyers of the world, it's been a few years since we've annexed those in.
Mhm.
I mean, if we're attributing this increased jail bill to Walmart, is their crime rates going up, or?
Took 1,300 calls at Walmart last year. Walmart went from a Walmart to a super Walmart. Fred Meyer, you know, they don't even factor in for me. They're not even on my radar.
So it's just Walmart.
Safeway, not really on my radar. The Albertsons on Olney, maybe barely catching it. You know, it is a lot Walmart. I mean, it
What are
is a
we doing?
big
Do you know
generator.
what we are the first quarter of this year for Walmart?
No.
I think what my question is because we did annex Walmart and Fred Meyer a few years ago. And I know that Alan does a good job and you do a good job, and the court's estimating what your costs are going to be. But we obviously missed it this year by a significant amount. So the question in my mind is, what is different? Is it, you know, and you're saying it's probably not the arrest, you know, has something changed, you know, something is different this year than it was the last couple of years, you know, and is it the number of, because I think, didn't we hear that something had changed for long-term sentences, that some costs had shifted?
Did you have any
So what we need to know is
I get what you're saying.
kind of identify what's different, because we're gonna have to plan for that
Yeah.
next year. You know, we have to figure out how to cover it this year, then how do we plan for, yes, you know, what's that factor that's,
Okay.
you know, we need to tweak?
I don't want to give the impression that I'm blaming this on Walmart, because I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that
Right.
there's a lot of activity around Walmart.
They contribute to it.
yeah, I know
It is a
exactly.
contributor.
Yeah.
But as far as what you're looking for is why is it higher?
Right,
I don't think it's related to my department, and other than, because we're not doing anything different. We respond to calls for service. We critique those calls for service for the factors that I say for whether we lodge people or not. And we go by that same standard, and that hasn't changed. So nothing's changed with my department. And it's not because I have more manpower, because I've been 2 people short. So it's not like we've been out making a lot of proactive arrests, because I've just been struggling to keep 2 cops on the road for a shift. So it's not within my department. We haven't changed anything, and
And
we're
you
just
could-
responding to the demand.
And you could even show that in numbers, because you have all that data.
I do have that data.
Yeah,
I've got the arrest data, I've got, what we do data, the data on who gets booked and who doesn't get booked. And like I said, I think the biggest thing a police department can do is be discretionary in who they put in jail. And I think we're very discretionary in who we put in jail.
When I did my ride along a few weeks ago, one of the first call we went on was Walmart, a second offender there, and he was written a citation there, given a court date on the spot, and walked out of the building in handcuffs and let go.
You'd be surprised at how many people, and this is I keep forgetting that most people in the public don't understand how many people do not go to jail. I mean, police departments across the country strive not to put people in jail. And then when you hear people on TV talking about, all the people in jail for marijuana or whatever, I'm like, well, where is that at? Because you can't do that. Nobody can do that. And it takes quite a bit. The threshold for you to go to jail in Port Orchard is pretty high. I don't think anybody in this room is going anytime soon, so.
That's a plus.
But I'm just telling you, the threshold is high. You gotta have a warrant, or you gotta be somebody that's gonna continue to cause a problem when the officer walks away. Or by statute, you've committed such an offense that the statute says you have to go to jail. Those are when we take people to jail.
If a person has a warrant from another city and they are willing to extradite, do we pay the jail bill until they come and get? That's
No.
no less.
We only pay the jail bill for municipal court people, defendants.
And or who you guys are.
And that's an agreement that they would have with other outside agencies.
Correct.
to-
Right.
The transition of prisoners.
I guess, going back to the basics, I haven't had a chance to really break this down, is the increase in the bill due to the number of people that we put up there, or are there other costs that we
It's bed day. it's
incur?
Bed
It's
days.
bed days, and the cost has gone up. I mean, every year it goes up. It's at 81 right now. So that is a
That's the
natural
cost the
increase.
county charges us.
That's correct.
Okay.
And
How does that compare to what we're proposing for Forks tonight? I don't have the tip of my
I think
finger.
Forks is in the high 40s.
Okay, so
Yes.
half. Almost half.
a little less than half, yes. And I keep track of how much we save each year sending them to Forks versus keeping them here. And last year, for 2015, the court saved the city almost $40,000. And we've saved almost $20,000 so far this year because we send them to Forks. That's not an easy thing to do because the clerks have at least another couple hours of work to do for every person they send there. So it's much easier for the court to say, you're up here and you're gonna stay there. That's what would be easier. But we do it because it does save the city money. Then I also review the jail bill every month. In 2015, they overbilled us by over $16,000. In 2014, they overbilled us over $22,000. So in 2015, by reviewing the jail bill and sending people to Forks, we saved $55,000. That's just by doing that. We also offer community service for everybody. There are probably very few cases we don't offer community service or electronic monitoring for. Electronic monitoring for the defendant is free, except for a $25 fee, a screening fee, one-time screening fee. We offer that to everybody. On failures.
Is that something new? Because we weren't doing that. the
We've
monitoring.
always offered them electronic home monitoring. We've always offered them community service. That's been the way it's been since I've been here.
Well, there's a difference between offering and, I think, sentencing is what we were looking at, was actually requiring him to do that.
Requiring it
Yeah.
before, okay.
And on failures to appear for arraignment, everyone that's given a citation is told that they must appear for an arraignment. The judge could order a warrant at that time. She rarely does. What she does, unless it's like a DUI or something like that, she always allows us, the court, to send a summons instead. If she had issued a warrant, that would be an arrest, that would be a cost. So we give people many chances to come to their arraignments. When a person is arrested by the police, we have 48 hours to set conditions, and the judge has to review whether they are a danger to the community, and she has to review if they are a threat not to appear for their next hearings. Those are the conditions for bail. So when a person's arrested on a warrant, the judge makes those decisions on what she feels is safe for the community.
Debbie, now the judge doesn't work 5 days a week, so how many of those people are staying in jail longer waiting for the judge to come in to review those?
None
Do
of
we
them.
have, none of them?
No, we have court every day for in custody. So
Okay, all right.
on Thursdays and Fridays when she's not at work, we call in a pro tem. That's why we have a pro tem
Okay.
charge. The contract calls for a 3-day judge. We have a pro tem if we have any in custody on Thursdays and Fridays. She also does a probable cause over the weekend. So if anybody's arrested over the weekend, she has to find probable cause for them to be staying in jail.
So I'm gonna ask you the same question that I asked the chief, and that is, if the arrests are basically the same, coming through the court, what would be different this year, besides the fact that the daily rate is more? I mean, what could we look to that we could measure so that next year we can plan for it? Do you have any idea what's different this year?
Really nothing. I have not noticed anything different. I've always told Finance Committee, everybody, that the jail bill's too low. It's not realistic. I've always said that. And
You mean the amount we budget you feel is too
Oh,
low?
I have always said that.
Okay.
Even when it was in my budget, which it shouldn't be, because it's not realistic. It never has been. For instance, in 2015, the court heard 947 charges were filed in our court. That's almost 1,000 charges.
That's 3 a day.
294 of them were not driving while license suspended thirds, the lowest charge ever. We rarely give any jail time for driving while license suspended third. Every person that is charged with that is at arraignment offered a pretrial diversion agreement. If they comply with a fine and getting their license, their case is dismissed after a year. The problem is people don't appear for their arraignments, or they commit another crime, they're arrested again. It just, the people, they don't really obey the law. And they are repeat offenders. They do it repeatedly.
Debbie, of that 1,000 sentences, is the number of charges, is the number of days in jail for 1,000 changed? I mean, the days in jails are what affects the budget.
Correct,
not
and that's what I was
necessarily- Oh, okay,
getting
you're going
to is
out.
that, okay, so that left 653 charges that each could have a potential of 364 days, which would equal 237,692 days of jail that are a potential for the city to pay, because every single one of them is being convicted of a charge that requires the top is 364, the bottom is 0. Some of them have mandatory, such as driving while license suspended first. Those are 180 days mandatory. You cannot waive them. That's mandatory. DUIs, same thing. It's not as high for DUIs, but it's higher if they have more than one DUI.
So driving with a suspended license, it is a stiffer sentence than,
First degree. Third degree is the least and is not. But by first degree, the law states that it's 180 days mandatory mandatory. There's no, that's it. But that's for driving license suspended first. Those are not as common as,
No.
but
What
they do
would get you
happen.
there? Multiple offenses of that, or?
Multiple offenses, it's, you have to have quite a bit on your record.
It's
yeah.
like almost impossible to get
Yeah,
charged and convicted of that.
right. We
Because
do
it'll
have
get, it'll
them,
get
though.
dealt. You'll have them,
Yes,
but most of them would get
Yeah.
dealt down.
so,
There's no reason,
yeah, but most of our cases that we hear are assaults, assault DVs, and theft. Get a lot of theft.
yeah.
They all have a potential of 364 days, and most of the people that are convicted of these crimes must do either, there's mental health treatment, chemical dependency treatment, DV treatment. All of those are conditions of their sentence.
Do we pay for those?
No.
Okay.
If they don't do it, however, we have to bring them in, and then they're given more time to do it, and they keep given more time and more time to do what they are supposed to do, and they rarely do it. And so then the judge, her only option is to impose jail time. And so that's where the jail bill gets increased, because these people do not do what they're supposed to do. So I figured it out that if every person in 2015 was sentenced to their full amount, they would have the 237,692 bed days that the city would have to pay. Last year, the number of bed days was 7,686. So we're at 3%, which is, I think, pretty amazing that only 3% is what
So
the
on
bed days
average,
were actually.
we're 7 days per case. If we had 1,000 cases, it was 7,000 bed days.
Right. And it's gonna vary, because we've got people that have mental illness that we are required by law to get them a competency eval. Washington, the Western Washington State Hospital is very slow at doing that. And
So they sit in jail while
they
they're
sit in
waiting to
jail
apply.
until they can be evaluated. We have a lot of people with mental health issues. We have a lot of people, and some of that's caused by alcoholism and drug use. Others have it just,
And obviously, those people you can't transport to Forks.
correct. We can only,
They have to be here
this is
until those
all
things-
pre-sentencing,
Yeah.
yes. We can only transport to Forks after they've been sentenced, and if they have no further holds in the county. If they have a Bremerton or a Bainbridge Island or Paulsbo, we work with them to get our time so that we can send them over together to Forks, so we split the bill.
And you may keep notes of things we could ask the legislature for some relief from.
Yeah, that's,
I'm
that's,
serious.
yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
some of these expenses, why should we be paying a jail bill because the state's hospital is backlogged and they can't get to these people to evaluate them?
We have a guy in trial right now, he's not in custody, but we've been waiting for an eval for him. He's out of custody, so they're way backlogged, and he's been in trial since, I think, last October or November, and it's already May, and we're still waiting for a competency eval. We can't go forward with the trial until we have that, because we can't, it's just not allowed. Other things that we do is, as I said, we summons people. Today we have on our calendar 41 people, all of them not in compliance. So, 41 cases, all not in compliance, and the judge has to decide if she's gonna give them more time or not, or to get in compliance or not. A lot of it's DV treatment, chemical dependency evaluations, most of it's chemical dependency evaluation, DV treatment, chemical dependency, reckless driving, And then I also have one particular person, I have two people here. It's an example of what we deal with on a daily basis. This guy was charged with the DUI back in January of 2015. He bailed within a day, so we only paid like 2 days for him, or if that. He posted bail, his first time DUI. He was allowed to enter into a pretrial diversion agreement in March 2015. He was required to do treatment, victims panel, and defensive driving. By April, he had new violations. We brought him in. He requested a continuance, he denied the allegations. June, he requested another continuance. End of June, he requested another continuance. July, he failed to appear, so we issued a warrant. A few days later, he comes in and he asked to quash his warrant, asked for another continuance. Then he's back in August. He's asking for another continuance, and he's supposed to provide, he's a DUI, he's supposed to provide proof of chemical dependency evaluation, which is the very first step. He hasn't even done that, or victims panel. So finally, in September of 2015, he admits to the allegation and he's convicted. He's ordered to serve 1 day of jail. That's it. He asked if it could be turned into electronic home monitoring, and in DUIs, it's a little different. You can do a 15-to-1 whatever, and he was allowed to do that. He, of course, did not do that. So this is September 2015. November, he was brought back in. He failed to appear. We had a hearing for him, but he failed to appear. He still hadn't completed his 15 days. He still hadn't complied with his DV treatment. In November of 15, same thing. In November of 2015, he had failed to do the 15 days. He'd failed to do chemical dependency treatment. They took him into custody that day and to serve the 15 days. December of 2015, he had another hearing for his chemical dependency treatment. He failed to appear for that. A warrant was issued. He came in the next week, quashed his warrant. Now, the judge could take him in at any time at this point, because, I mean, this has been going on for a year. So in January, we heard him again, he still wasn't in compliance. February, we heard him again, he still wasn't in compliance. March of 2016, he failed to appear for a hearing, a warrant was ordered. The next week, he comes in to quash his warrant again. He still hadn't provided any proof of treatment. March, no proof of treatment. The judge had him coming in every week, still no treatment. This goes on until May 10th, 2 weeks ago. He was taken into custody from the courtroom. Bail set at $50,000. He had never shown any proof of any treatment, and the reason he was taken into custody is because he had a new DUI from March of 2016. This is why your jail bill goes up, because people like this who do not comply with what is ordered from the judge. This guy had how many opportunities to do what he was supposed to do? The court goes out, we go out of our way to give them every opportunity. This is just one person.
Is that the norm?
Yes.
That's the norm, so
Yes.
everybody is ignoring.
I pulled
court.
another one from the,
Well, you don't need to go through it.
Yeah,
That's
the
just-
other
no, I won't, but
Yeah.
this
The
is
other
what
thing
we
that
deal
I
with.
heard with that is that started in 2015, but we didn't incur the jail expense until 2016. So some of these are on a lag basis too. Even if we were to look at the chief's numbers, they may not correspond with jail days,
Right, right.
this year.
We have 5 years jurisdiction, so if people don't comply, well, 5 for DUIs and DVs, 2 for every
What
other
is a
case.
DV?
Domestic violence,
Domestic
assault, they've injured.
So a component of this could potentially, we've grown the city and we have this bubble, but we keep punching this bubble, we're pushing this bubble along
Mhm.
because we're trying to give these people a chance, and we're still on the growth side of that bubble
Right.
that we've, from growing the city, whether it be Walmart,
So the
somewhere
revenue
else on
changes.
Bethel, the footprint of the city is
Yeah,
bigger.
that's,
And
we have 2 years jurisdiction. So, yeah, it's just a normal progression when you've added all of these, call it, that. what's the
Yeah,
word?
but you'd think.
Magnets.
No, all these different increases in
We were
Annexation.
establishing a norm, because if they only have
Annex-
jurisdiction for 5
annex, that's
years,
what I was trying for.
Yeah, we've gotta be coming to the, hopefully the end of this,
Yeah.
end of this bubble.
Right.
how
Because
long ago did we annex?
it's only 3 years ago.
Was it just
Yeah.
3 years?
Yeah,
Not
I would
that
say
long
11,
ago.
10, 11.
I would say it was.
Five.
Because,
Time goes by
McCormick
so
Woods
fast.
was
Yeah, I
like
know.
8 or something.
Right.
Yeah,
that
McCormick was the
earlier.
first one, that was
Yeah.
quite
But
a
that
while.
one's,
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of crime in McCormick.
2003, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, 2003, April of
It's Bethel,
2003.
I mean, the Bethel corridor came with revenue, but it
Right.
came with expenses.
I think so.
it did. And unfortunately, there are so many people out there that are repeat offenders that it's theft too, even though that it's, you think it's a pretty minor crime. The people that are at Walmart doing this, it's not their first time and it won't be their last time. And that's usually why they end up in custody again, because it's not their first one. They get charged once,
Yeah.
then a couple months later, they get charged again. So we bringing them up for a motion to revoke because they haven't maintained law abiding behavior. So it's a, it's a huge cycle.
Debbie, the part that I don't understand is that unique or is that the norm? I mean,
That's norm.
yeah, so that was the same situation last year and the year before and the year before. What's changed that this year, all of a sudden, there appears to be a spike in, if we've got all these crumb bums out there that aren't complying, but it seems to be the average, for some reason, other than the cost of the jail cell went up, something is driving this
and that's what
big
we're trying to
increase.
figure
That's
out.
what I'm
What's
trying to
bec-
figure out, so that, one, we can kind of figure out how to get through the rest of the year, and as Beck suggests,
How to
Plan
make sure we're
better
not
for
there.
next year.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't wanna do this again next year.
yeah.
Right.
So if, and I guess I'm gonna be very blunt here, if the number of cases appear to be the same, but the number of jail days goes up, then for some reason, an individual on average is getting sentenced to more days this year than last year. I don't know if that's the case or not.
So are the jail days are more this year than they were in previous?
Well, I assume so,
when
they're all
with
related
the-
to the budget, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's every year it goes up by the CPI.
The
Right.
cost of the
Yeah.
cell.
But
yeah.
But we're
our,
talking about the number of
Number of
bed
people
days.
that are
Bed
visiting
days
our
are
hotel up there.
increasing too.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know, I was shocked this year because I was tracking toward the start of the year, and of course I go upstairs and talk to the girls a lot, and they tell me, yeah, your jail bill's this far over this month, and I was pretty shocked, and I was like, because on our end, I don't see it.
And it's not really, I mean, there's, it's,
It's significantly up, I'm looking at.
but
the
it's really
report.
not in bed days. I mean, this March was high, but there's, both January and February were around 700 bed days. And there were months in 2015 that had 700. And there were months in 2014 that also had those, but
For Kitsap County in 2015, there was 499 bed days in January. This year, there was 719. February's 448 bed days.
What is this, Ellen? I'm sorry.
Bed days.
Bed days for who?
Kids that
For us?
For us, yeah, at the county jail.
Oh, okay,
For-
okay.
Yeah, for the county jail.
So could you say that again?
Yeah, 499 in January 2015, 719 in 2016, 448 in 2015 for February, 730 this year in February.
that's before we reviewed it at 716. for February.
You know, I stand corrected. March is 553 in 2015, and then 893 for 2016.
So the number of bed days has gone up significantly if you look at,
300 and,
A month.
yeah.
Well, one of the reasons, I think about a year ago, the jails stopped, they changed their, I can't remember what they call it, but in the past, the officers would bring a person in, and the officer would bring him in, he'd be booked, and he'd be released immediately if his charge wasn't a DUI or an assault. They changed their standards, jail standards, intake standards is what it's called. And they changed them so that they don't release anybody if they're booked or they're brought in from arrest. So that does account for some of the increase.
When did that start?
That they changed it,
Uh-huh.
I can't remember exactly, it was sometime last year,
Sometime last year, okay.
which may account for a portion of it, because what happens is a person's arrested on driving license suspended third or whatever, that person was booked and released immediately.
Right.
Where the city was charged a half a day for those people. Now they're not doing that, so they book them, they keep them in custody until the judge can determine if there's probable cause to hold.
So do we see a marked difference in 2015 when that perhaps occurred?
Doesn't really,
It would probably be gradual. I would
Spike,
think.
the
Yeah.
spike is this first quarter of this year.
yeah, January, I'll just go through the months, of 2015. January is 499, February 448, March 553, April 602, May 698, June 580, July 617, August 702, September 677, October 758, November 763, and December 789. So to your point, yes, you can see that
Yeah, you can see that somewhere,
in there.
About mid-year last
Get a
year,
copy
it
of that?
yeah.
Sure.
was
Yeah,
about
you-
mid-year this.
Yeah,
this
you go
spike.
from a 602 to a 698, and then 580. So you can kind of see right in,
And now the jail, just so you know, as of yesterday, when a person is arrested and they have a charge with us and they have a charge with the county or DOC or Bremerton or whoever, if it's, in our case, the judge does not set any bail. She releases them on their personal recognizance. So we're not paying the bill. She does that in almost every case that she can. So if they're being held for felony or something else, on our case, they're PR'd. So at the time of, okay, so we're not paying. When they're revoked or they are sentenced, the prosecutors and the public defenders come to an agreement about how much time he should serve. And they usually, say, for instance, yesterday they had a case, 15 days, the guy was imposed 15 days, and it was to be credit for time served, 15 days. In the past, before yesterday, the jail would then bill us for, if the person's convicted of 15 days, they serve 10 days. They always get a third good time. So that's 10 days that he was to serve, and they would go back and bill us, because they're always late in billing, they're able to do this, then they would bill us for the 10 days. Yesterday, and so it would be shared with whoever else was holding him. Yesterday, the jail told the judge on the record in court that they agreed to this 15 days credit from time served. The jail said, we are not going to do that anymore because you weren't holding him at that time. So if you want him held or given credit for time, you have to be setting bail for this person. So now this person's not going to be released until another 10 days instead of being released that day, because, and I don't know why, but the jail has changed what they are deciding to do with people that are getting credit for time served.
Okay, so when
So that's
you-
another dilemma for the court.
Right, but when you talk about that, from way you explained it, Debbie, that's going to increase our jail bill even more.
Going
But
forward.
Going forward, that would not have anything to do with the increase that we've seen now.
I think
That's going to be
we've
an
got a
additional.
trend here that started about mid-year last year that we missed
Well,
to a certain extent.
we missed it completely because we're estimating revenue, we're estimating our cost and our revenue in June, July, and August.
Right.
Right,
And so the trend that was up, which
Had-
finance
you-
wouldn't have
Hadn't seen it
known.
yet.
Yeah.
We hadn't seen it in the numbers yet, so whatever changed, we wouldn't have seen that till we had the data there. So that, you can see how that would happen.
So as of yesterday, the jail said that they would no longer acknowledge time served if the
If
fine
we were
wasn't-
holding them on bail. And so I have got both the prosecutors and the public defenders going to their bosses to talk to the jail, because I think that's illegal. But, I just, the jail throws this at us all the time. This isn't, they're always doing stuff to try to get us to increase our jail bill, just as the state patrol meeting that both the chief and I went to. Their goal, what they wanted us to do
everybody arrested.
was to have everybody booked so that they would be fingerprinted so that every charge can be on their criminal history. And the chief was the only one that spoke up and said, this is, something that we can't do fiscally. So later in the meeting, the chief had left, but I was still there. They said, well, the judge can do an order and order these people to go to the jail to be fingerprinted after they're convicted so that we get a true criminal history. And I asked, the jail staff was also there, and I said, so is there a charge for that? And they go, yep. So that'd be another $100, $80 or whatever that we'd pay for every conviction for a person just to go get fingerprinted. And so we get pressures from
That's
all
on that list
different
in the state.
angles to increase the jail bill, and we fight them as strongly as we can, but the judge cannot consider the jail bill when she's sentencing. It would be
Oh, no,
totally
I-
unethical.
Yeah.
And she can't do that, but us on the other side of it, we're being bombarded by changes that will increase that. We try to fight them, but we are, there's only so much we can do to keep the other people that are playing in the game so that we're not increasing the jail bill. I fight this every day, every single day. I try to figure out, the jail bill to review, it takes me a good couple days of straight review. And I had a clerk review it this last month because she left. She had her baby and she left, but before that she wanted to do that, and so she reviewed it. She couldn't believe all the steps involved in reviewing the jail bill and all the thought processes you have to go through to figure out if they're really actually billing us correctly or not. It's not like it's, oh yeah, this person was in jail, this one wasn't. It's not a simple matter. So, we do as much as we can to
Debbie,
lower the jail bill.
is Terry aware of, it appears based on these numbers that she's giving more days per case, for lack of a better term, than she has historically.
No, I wouldn't say that's true. It's based on
Well-
prosecutors, there's the charges, the types of crimes, the ones that get the more time are the ones that have this more serious crimes.
Right, no, I
She's not
understand that
giving
part,
them
but
to theft and.
what it appears by the numbers, assuming that all else is equal, we're getting an equal number of serious offenders versus non-serious offenders. It appears that the number of days that on average these people are getting assigned has gone up. And I'm curious as to whether or not, sometimes you're looking at the case in front of you and that's what you're dealing with, but I was curious of whether or not Terry is aware that, it looks like over this last whatever period of time, the number of days per client is going up. Just to kind of give
I
her
don't
something
think
to
she
think
would
about.
ever be aware of that. The sentencing standards are, the prosecutor recommends, and they come to an agreement with the
Right,
public defenders on what the jail time will be.
right.
They always, so when she imposes it, she usually goes along with what they've agreed to, because the prosecutor goes high, the public defense
Right,
goes
right,
low,
right.
there's something in the middle that they meet at, and that is what the judge usually goes with.
Okay, so then it sounds like it circled back to those two, the prosecutor and the public defender. They're collectively recommending a higher number than they have in the past.
The other thing we want to count, because I don't know how many would normally be checked in and then released immediately, and we used to pay a half a day for that. And now we're paying they're not allowing that to happen, so we're paying a whole day. So every one of those is an extra half day to us. So I wonder,
Or 2 days, because if they're arrested on a Friday, they're not heard until Monday.
I wonder what percentage of our increase that
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
That could be 25% of our increase, or it could be 50%
I
of
think
our
there's
increase.
a number of factors
No, I do
Right.
too.
Right.
contributing to this.
Yeah.
And the biggest takeaway, I think, from today is that.
It started
we-
before
Yeah,
we were.
it started about, 9 months ago. I think we're aware of it now.
Mhm.
We're,
Well, I'm just,
and the factors that are contributing to it, and we have to deal with it, and I think we need to budget a higher number in 2017, in our biennial budget, a 2-year budget than we have this past year.
Oh, definitely.
can you see a trend by those numbers?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they just march up. I mean, there's the bar graph from year to year. You can see it's just stepped up each period of time. Year over year, it's always been up.
Yeah,
This
But
is
it
bed
really
days
did
up here.
take a
yeah, it's
jump.
bed days by year, so.
Right,
You can see
This
this.
is
Yeah.
15, yeah.
right. And look at, you're the tallest or the
16, starting, we only had 3 months worth of 16
Right.
data, so.
But you can see here it was up significantly, then it was down, and then each of those
It's
keeps going up.
progressively gotten up.
Yeah, so the issue happened right in here.
Well, and that's about the time that the jail put like a governor on the switch, saying that they had controls on who could be booked, and because their capacity was over the amount, and they were over for 9 months or something like that, where they had pretty much had special
Right.
criteria for
So they
booking.
would-
Yeah, they
They
have
would
jail
release
intake
people.
standards.
So it wasn't
and
just
it's
here.
changed. No, yeah, it had.
It wasn't
correct.
just here. And so
Mhm.
What does that
something.
mean? Does that mean that they were taking fewer prisoners?
Yeah,
or-
they,
Then
that's
we sh-
exactly what I meant.
then we should
Means they
have
were
few-
turning people away.
Then we
think
should
we'd have
have
fewer
fewer bed
numbers.
days then. If they
This
were
was-
turning them away. that we
Over
should-
the years, they've had jail intake standards since I've been in the business.
Right.
And they have gone up and they've gone down, they've gone up and they've gone down, and it depends on the capacity of the jail. I mean, there was a time 6, 7 years ago, they weren't even keeping DUI cases. They would just book and release, book and release, book and release. Now the laws have changed. They can't book and release a
They have to
DUI, especially if it's their second. It has to be a no bail hold, because the law says that if they've got more than one DUI. So the law has changed, and also their standards continually change. 1 minute they're too full, so they release everybody. Then all of a sudden, they want the revenue, so they keep everybody. And that's where they're at right now. They're keeping everybody because they want their revenue higher. That's why they're doing the no credit for time served if you weren't holding them before, because they want the cities to pay more. That's how they get their revenue. If you were at district court, none of that would never
Sheriff.
affect anybody.
County sheriff.
Well, there is a jail administrator
Who works for the county
that's
sheriff.
new.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
So,
And the sheriff's new.
He's a deputy.
so is,
He is a deputy.
is there a body that makes that decision, or is it actually a sheriff's decision?
The superintendent is the one in charge,
County
and,
commissioners would be.
I would think they would be ultimate, wouldn't
No.
they? No?
no, well.
They have to go to
ja-
the commissioners for a lot.
Not for jail
For
intake
budget.
For budget,
standards.
for
Oh,
budget.
I'm talking about their policies.
Yeah, but
Well,
for budget
They have to go there for their budget, but the sheriff,
is
Yeah,
independently
elected
elected.
yeah, he's an elected official,
Right,
so.
but the person in charge of the actual jail, they just had a change, you're
Right.
correct in that. I really don't even know who it is at this point. And he sets the jail standards intake standards based on the capacity of the jail and how much room they have rules they have to follow and things like that.
But they did remove those, like, I think it was toward the end of last year.
I'd say it was earlier, but it
Yeah,
was last year.
It was toward the end of last year sometime.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact date,
And there hasn't been
Yeah.
any talk since then about,
No, he didn't.
their population being,
He makes that decision and then he calls a meeting and says, this is the decision I made. And-
yeah, but the point I was trying to
Who's he-
make
Who's he
is,
meet with when he calls a decision?
Uh,
I mean, she said that he makes a decision and he calls a meeting.
Mark
Who's
Rushman.
who's called to the meeting?
He calls
Who's
to
the
get,
deputies?
the superintendent, after he changes the jail intake standards, usually sends out an email to all participants in the jail. So it'd be like all the police chiefs, all the courts in this local area, all the ones that they contract with. They also contract with Gig Harbor Municipal.
yeah, these are all unilateral decisions.
Yeah.
They're not,
They're not-
there's no meeting and
Right.
voting or anything like
Well, when
that.
she
No.
said meeting, I was
He
wondering
called
No.
a meeting
what she meant by
to let
meeting.
us
She meets,
complain and
he
then-
meets with,
A notification more than a meeting.
Right.
he
Correct.
meets with the sheriff and says,
Right.
here's what I'm gonna do to these guys. Like this deal where, our court would release somebody. He went in and talked to the sheriff and says, hey, look, Port Orchard's screwing us because, they see that we're holding somebody, so they're dropping their deal, so they don't have to pay their fair share.
Yep.
And so he goes, well, that's not right. Send them an email or tell them they can't do that anymore. And there you're done. It's their jail, and they use it, and they have
Problem
costs
is
just
it
like everybody else.
Sticks in my cross, it's not their jail.
Well,
We all collectively paid for that jail.
yeah, well, then we should have some say-so, but
Yeah, you
Well, we
think.
don't.
we don't.
We don't.
And that's why I call it their jail, because they get to make the rules, and we have to live by them.
And that's why we decide to send people to Forks, because we don't like their rules.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. And
Right.
But we have to have a certain.
Right.
But Forks isn't
threshold
a,
before
It's a
we-
long-term, it's
before we
long-term
get into
commitments. at
Forks,
Forks.
Forks
Right.
is, sporadic
Very
at best
small.
because it's small.
They're full, like
During that
last-
year when the population went up, they decided to close for remodeling for
Yep.
almost 6 or 8 months.
Yeah.
I mean, we just couldn't use the facility.
And we'd call and say, we have 2 people,
Yeah.
and they'd say, sorry, we're full. If we have 2 males and 2 females, oh, we can take the males, we can't take the females. So we have to deal with that when we prepare the paperwork for them to be released. We have to, email them and say, we've got this many people to go. They tell us yes or no, they can take them. Then we have to notify the jail. The jail, yes, last week, we had a person, 1 or 2 people going. They wouldn't let us send them because they had a DOC hold. We can't see on the system that they allow us to use to see who's in custody and why they're being held. We can't see a DOC hold. It's a special hold. Anyway, so the person can't go.
And I'd be curious, and I don't know what Bremerton's situation is, but Bremerton is pretty much a mirror image of Port Orchard, only just a little
bit
bigger. And I'd be interested to see where their jail bill is.
They had the same problem.
Because they have the same issues we do, they reflect this city in a lot of ways, we're both blue collar cities.
Similar demographics.
We're not Poulsbo, who had like 150 arrests in a year.
Or Bainbridge.
Yeah, or Bainbridge, who had, maybe 5 arrests. But, it'd be interesting to see what
They obviously need a Walmart on Bainbridge Island.
I just wonder.
They won't let one.
It'd be interesting to see what
Well, we'll get
Bremerton's
Weber.
jail bill did during that time. And if we're gonna attribute this to Terry Decker, then, she's not the justice
No.
over there, so. or
The other thing
judge.
is Forks is a small facility.
Mhm.
Yes.
Are there other opportunities for us? Because
Yeah,
I
the
know
only
there's
other-
a jail
yeah.
down in Grace
I looked at-
Harbor.
Not that
so-
cost.
I looked at the only one that was close enough that Bremerton uses is over on the Seattle side. Can't
Kent.
remember the name of it.
Kent? Is it Kent?
No, it's
I-
actually further
Yeah,
east.
and they have, it's
It's a ways.
substantially more. I mean, like, instead of $80 a day,
It's
they're
like
paying
70.
70.
Okay,
Um,
Yeah, I actually looked at the, because
Plus you pay
Bremerton had a
costs.
contract with them, so I got that contract.
Because there's what's that jail down in Grace Harbor on your way out to Westport? There's a jail.
That's a
prison.
state.
That's
a
Prison, we
state.
can't go to state prisons. It's
Okay.
just
State
strictly
facility.
jails. I've also
Okay.
talked to, Fife has their own jail, and they were taking other courts'
Tacoma's for a while.
prisoners. Yes, right. But they have a lot of, there's always a lot of issues. It's kind of, and she said it wasn't any cheaper than what we're paying right now. She was shocked at how little we pay.
Yeah,
So-
the Forks is the best deal in
Forks is
town.
the totally best
It's
deal in
incredible.
town.
Well, if you can use it.
Yeah, I mean, that's
And we
just
use it
it.
as much as we can. I mean,
Yeah.
every week we have at least one or two ready to go. We try to get them sent. We have just that one case where we have a guy there for
Keep this up.
3 years, and
Can you email that to us?
Ellen?
Can you
Oh,
email
sure.
that?
but we
That would be
do.
Yeah.
better, well,
Pardon me?
email it too if you would.
To you too?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's 8:30. We've got
Yeah.
a lot of the
We
other
have our
agendas,
agenda
so
items. Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Thank
think
you.
the
Very
thing that
helpful.
we're seeing is the number of bed days are going up,
Right.
and maybe we can kind of project. So, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, our revenue's up, but so are expenses.
Yeah, well, and some of this that I heard this morning, definitely we should be putting on the list of,
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
Go
made a
after
note
the
here
state,
about the
because-
Western state in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, sentencing, they changed the laws and they're making,
Oh,
you know,
impacting us
DWIs and things like,
Right.
I mean, we're voting, those are conversations we need to have with our folks. I mean, we want to do that. I mean, we want to punish for these crimes, but there is an effect,
Well, the other thing that I was thinking of is that, and this has bugged me for years, this whole administration of the jail. There's so many things that we all collectively pay for that jail. And yet now it's under this dictatorship of the sheriff, not that, we haven't had this thing, but we have zero input on how that's being run. We have zero visibility in what those expenses are, or what the reasons are for these changes. I'm thinking that we should somehow move that jail under the same kind of umbrella that CENTCOM is under, and have all of the jurisdictions be able to at least increase the transparency. We all have a feel for what's going on, and maybe we just come up with an annual fee for the operation, similarly to what we do for CENTCOM, based on the number of calls or whatever the case may be. But I just feel like we have the same problem with the boat registration fees. The county basically has control over it, regardless of how many boats we have in our community. They have a couple boats that they use, so they take the lion's share of it. Well, that's not fair, and yet it's under the control of the sheriff. So,
there's no simple answers, that's for sure.
Systemic
No,
problem
but
with-
that's, those are some interesting conversations that we could even start
Well,
at KRCC.
I think-
And I didn't have that
Because we
report
have-
when I was just signing checks and paying bills, and I go, holy cow, what the heck's going on? And we started digging a little deeper, and I got that report, and I'm going, well, we need to talk about this, because.
Oh, no, we did, because we have to figure out how
Yeah.
we manage it moving forward,
Yeah.
how we account.
It was just more raising the flag going, my God, we got a problem here,
Yeah.
we need to get out in front of this and
No, I agree.
talk about it.
I think one of the challenges, maybe we need to do a little homework on ourselves before we go to the KRCC.
Oh, yeah,
and that
no.
is, how significant of a problem is this for Bainbridge and Paulsville?
Right.
What I heard here, it's
So it's
not
us in
that big of a
Bremerton.
deal.
Yeah, and so then they wouldn't carry
They may
one.
not, want to fall on their sword, or they may
Right.
get behind us just because.
And one of the
but
things that we've done at KRCC is we've really put our focus on transportation and land use. But we have.
It is a coordinating council.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have reserved over here an incubation area so that we can begin those dialogues, but not take on the work of whatever it is, but, to introduce some things.
Of course, the other thing about KRCC is Bremerton no longer is a member, so
That's
now
correct.
we're 50%.
Yeah, no, that's
Well,
a,
so much for that attempt.
yeah, no, exactly.
Okay,
And that's real.
Yep.
moving right along, till we go back up to sales tax.
The sales tax continues at a good pace.
Yeah.
The statewide number for the whole state is up about a little over 6%, so.
Is that right?
So we're falling right into the same category, so we've seen that statewide.
So why do you think our increase last month was?
It's hard, sometimes there's adjustments, some of it's timing issues, sometimes they take it away, they'll do an adjustment, I didn't look at it. Generally, it's something like that, it's a short filing period for somebody, or
Something.
they have adjusted it generally when you see that. I wouldn't attribute it to much more than that. I don't think it's probably a trend
Okay.
purchasing. But we just got this yesterday, so Friday afternoon, I guess. So anyway, that's in the right direction.
We don't have the
Reed is over here on the bottom on the right.
do we have May distribution?
No, we don't have that
Okay,
one.
not yet.
But you can see that's coming on at a fairly healthy clip as well. So a lot of activity there. So
Okay.
that's the long and the short of it. The other thing is a memo that I included just to keep you in the loop. Probably more of a housekeeping issue for you all. But if we go back to the actual city policies for, employees' reimbursements, originally under the policy, it set up that the mayor would write a memorandum of expenses to be for reimbursement for meals, and then the council would approve that memorandum. If there was challenge, then the mayor or their designee could weigh the cost associated with a travel dispute. And then within that same policy, it says the treasurer shall adopt, publish, and enforce rules and procedures consistent with the policy for carrying out the provisions. And then it says, goes on to say that if within these 3 pages, it says the treasurer is authorized to approve exceptions to the authorized per diem meal allowance. So we've got everybody involved in determining, if you went to Kent, what your reimbursement was for your lunch. So so it always comes up to what does an employee expect to have. So it always comes up more often than not, and somebody's gonna say, how come I didn't get this or that? So you've got all these people involved. That usually rolls up to the treasurer, it always does, and I've always said, just go to the online rules for the federal government, whatever the per diem rate is, that's what we're gonna pay. And so that's what this memo says we'd like to move to, and actually starting January 1st, I just said, if anybody's gonna come and ask me, or we're gonna process this at the payable level, we're gonna use the federal printed standards, just like on the gas. This is a different agency, but they track the per diem. There's a couple good things about that. Employees can cherry pick now, or previously the employee could cherry pick. They could look at the memo and say, oh, if I want lunch under the state memo is a higher rate than if I were to go to this rate. So they would say, well, so if they knew that the federal rate was higher, they would dispute it and get the higher rate. So this just clears that all up and puts it in place under the mayor's authority. The mayor can make changes to the personnel policy, and that's what this memo is talking about. So everybody will have it. It's online. You go.
So when someone goes to a meeting we give them a per diem for their meals. We
Right.
don't reimburse them for the cost of that
Right.
particular meal.
Right, it's per diem travel. Now, if they're going to if they're assigned to go to a meeting that has a meal cost assigned to it, then we reimburse that. That's under the travel rules. But this is the per diem rule. So let's say you're gonna drive from here to Spokane, you're gonna have lunch on the way, you're gonna get the per diem rate. If you stopped in Ellensburg, you click on that, it says Ellensburg, and that's the rate.
So say that again about if you go to a conference that provides a meal, they're gonna get per diem for that meal also?
No,
No.
no. If you send somebody to a meeting
Mhm.
and they charge you, $20 for lunch, you get reimbursed that $20 because you really don't have any choice. But that's under the travel regs.
But most of the time, those are included in your registration fee.
Yeah, but
Right.
most of the time, well, some of the times, I should say most of the time, but there are times like, I've gone to conferences where they say continental breakfast, where there's a
Okay.
dried up hard biscuit
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
a
yeah.
glass of
No.
orange juice, and that's breakfast?
No, not under these rules.
Okay.
Under these rules, you get it, and you even get it on an airplane. If in fact you travel through a lunch hour on an aircraft, then you get the per diem rate.
Which, especially, I would agree with that, because
You don't.
I don't know
you
the
lose.
last time you bought a hamburger at an airport, but it's usually
Right.
about 3 times the price of a hamburger everywhere else, so
Right.
they've got you captive.
So let's say somebody traveled, they were in the car and they were not, and they traveled through breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they would get the per diem rate in a check. We wouldn't come back and say, give us a
Give
receipt.
It's a receipt. No, I agree. I think
Right,
that's great.
it's just clean and
Yeah.
everybody can click on it. But I didn't want, we did change that January 1st, I just wanted you to be aware of it. Everything's been changed because it was a flip of the coin before, we were always deciding. You can, I
Might
can
as well
see
get
it.
it set in concrete, everybody knows.
Right, it's a good deal.
I'm gonna attempt to get us back on track here. So here are, our first one is furnishings. I'm sorry I didn't get these down at the time I recorded. So page 2, if you flip to, that's a picture of a chair in Bremerton. As we know, that have sat in the chairs in Bremerton, they have the Cadillac of chairs in their conference chamber. And if you look at the wheels and the way that chair is made, it's very, very nice. I sent that picture to the company that we've been acquiring some office furniture from over in Seattle, and he told me that that is a Real chair is the brand, and they would cost $1,500 a piece. And I know we've been looking at new chairs for, or at least was tasked with that. He gave me an option here in this picture for a chair that's $250. We can replace those a few times, but you can look at the quality of the chair. The casters are plastic. It isn't as substantial. I'm gonna make a trip here in the next few weeks or months and go sit in that chair and make sure it's not garbage. But that's just kind of the direction I was gonna go, and probably build this into the budget to replace all the chairs at this cost in the council chamber next year. So
We just purchased a bunch of office chairs, and I'll check and find out where we bought them and how much we paid for them.
okay. The nice thing too about this company is they're on the state's list,
Bid list.
So, the disadvantage is they're in Seattle and they charge us $300 every time they show up. So we try to get multiple things and not, but they've been very fair to us and, good resource, because I was shopping for chairs and I did that.
So are you talking about the, how
I'm
many
look.
chairs do
This
we
is
have up there? We had 8 or 9.
there's 9 chairs,
9 chairs.
and then there's a total of 15 because the staff chairs are not very good quality either, and they're an Office Depot chair. I'm looking at doing the whole chamber from the 4 or 5 staff chairs, the 9 council chairs. I think there's 14, but it'll be something that's put into next year's budget. I'm just keeping
God, I
it.
can't believe the city paid $1,500 a piece for those chairs. So we just bought a ton of chairs, and we didn't come anywhere close to that.
Well, you look at that too, but remember, it's stainless.
And not all of them have casters.
No, they don't. But they're, all of them are, they are stainless in
Right,
the
no, they're nice
frame. They're
chairs.
really nice chairs.
Yeah.
They are. Are they $1,500? I mean, we can replace them every 5 years and be money ahead, you know. And that's what we're gonna have to realize, is that we're gonna buy a lesser quality chair, and we might break a chair or two, you know, over the next 5 or 6 years, and
I
have to
hope
replace a
not the one
couple.
I'm sitting in.
Me neither.
So, just,
But thanks for the warning.
all right, we're gonna move on to the fire ILA real quick here, and I wasn't awake yet when I was running the copier, so my pages are backwards. If you went to the back page, it's kind of my memo that I've been working off of. Just some background here. Here is the prior ILA, that when we annexed into the fire district. It's a very large document. We have, at least in the 10 years I've been around, I've never attended there's an advisory board similar to SAC. We haven't been doing that function. There's all kinds of things from the transfer to assets. You know, so the new document's gonna be much smaller. Matter of fact, here's the draft. It's about 5 pages that I've gotten. It has some holes in it that I've recognized. So number one, so what's happened here is, when we annexed into the fire district, we were a city of less than 5,000 people. There's a provision in here that says if the city grows significantly, and we're 14,000 people now, that there's a process for us to renegotiate this deal. At the time, our person that was doing our technical reviews for building applications was maybe 40% of his job. Steve is saying it's 100% of his job at this point. So we've gone through a process here where I've tried to determine what really is our responsibility under IFC as International Fire Code, and things we like to do, what we have to do. And then Steve and I have worked through this. I've got a list of duties related to fire code, and you can see there's things that are city responsibility, both of our responsibilities, and the district's responsibilities. If you go to this, then I asked for Steve. Steve is wanting for us not to pay for all of this employee, but he would like us to contribute to this employee. You can see their cost of this employee is $138,000, and then they've got some line staff that are doing overtime inspection work. I took and looked at, okay, if they want 50, he wants this in a lump sum, which I don't agree with. I want to make it based on activity if we're going to go this route. So the finance department you don't have this piece, but the cost for us to hire our own employee would be about $110,000 or $105,000, and about $5,000 in one-time costs to buy a desk, a computer, so on and so forth. So they're asking for 50 grand. We've got about $10,000 a year that we're paying for a part-time inspector out there in the private sector. So I really can't justify spending $105,000 to replace that in-house. So you following my logic there?
Because they want 50.
And we're spending 10, so we've got if we go forward with their proposal, it'd be about $60,000 a year. If we divorce ourselves from the fire district and bring this in-house, which that's what planning staff would like to have more control over this process, but I really can't justify that expenditure of $105,000 annually. It would give us some redundancy in the building department, and we'd be able to move away from the private sector inspector that we're utilizing at times. Typically, that if it's related to the contractor wanting an expedited, it's a pass through.
They pay for that.
They pay for it. But they don't always pay for it, because Mr. Robinson, goes on vacation, gets sick. So there are times when we're paying for it. So my recommendation is that I continue, before I start spending attorney time, I wanted to check in with the finance committee and say, this is where this is headed. We've kind of agreed based on this list, what it is that we're trying to compensate them for. The district would like it in a flat fee. You can see part way through my memo here. I'd like to base it on their reviews that they're doing and do it on a fee based, so that when this bubble bursts, we're not paying them $50,000 a year and get $30,000 worth of work. So what I'm proposing is we come to based on this year's projections, we should have 185 reviews of some sort. Some are way more. And if I look at other jurisdictions, they've got these fee charts that charge different amounts for different activity. My concern going that route is all of a sudden we have to hire another half-time employee to track activity. Okay, this is pretty simple to go to. You know, somebody building a single-family residence is a review. It's a very simple one. A subdivision, a commercial review is much bigger. I'm just trying to get to I backed into their number. You know, what do I have to do to get them their number they're asking for at today's activity level? And that's how I came to the $185.
Does Kitsap County, how do they perform these functions?
Internally, with
They
their
have
own
their own
staff.
staff.
And I've reached out to Dave Lyman. We've played some phone tag just to do some due diligence. I don't believe the county would be cheaper. I believe their staff, though, is of a higher level. And part of what's, if you can see up here in bullet number 3, we had Wayne Center, who became the chief. Then we had Greg Rogers performing these functions. And they had degrees in this. Our current person has been promoted internally. He's an EMT. It's not that he can't learn this stuff, but he does. I had a meeting with Wayne Center actually to determine what certifications should this person have. And so the IFC, there's a plan review certification, and this I couldn't tell you what this acronym is, but it means something to the people in the fire department. That NICET.
So what exactly, you're gonna have to get more basic for me.
Okay.
What exactly is the fire department doing for us?
Okay, so part of, you come in and you want to build a subdivision, and there's a component of that our planning staff does, and there's a component that relates to building code, and there's a component of it that relates to fire code.
Okay, and
And
so,
they're two separate disciplines.
so they do the fire code piece, we do not.
Correct. And we could
We could for $105,000
dollars a year do the fire code side of it too.
So we're paying them $60,000 to do that.
Well, we're going to pay them 50, but what I was pointing out is we're spending about 10,000 a year on additional building code inspection process. So if we hired our own person, we would want
Oh.
to hire a person that had two
Correct.
disciplines.
Could do both.
Wear both hats.
Right.
And provide redundancy to the building
Right.
code side,
Right,
as well as do the fire code.
right.
So, what does this person at the district do the rest of the time?
He is 100% doing those reviews, plan reviews, according to the chief, and then there's the inspection. So now we've issued the permit. Okay, we've gone through all this whole review process, issued the permit, and now the builder's out building it. Okay, and you have to go out and
Inspect it.
inspect to ensure that it was built just like our building
So
official.
are they then, you said that Kitsap County has their own in-house person that
Oh,
does.
multiple.
So my question is, if Kitsap County does their own,
Mm-hmm.
and we're hiring a district to do ours, what else is that? I mean, are they just hiring a person to
To do
service
our
our
work?
contract?
Yes.
Well, it
We-
was,
what- it-
but
Not
remember when you
originally.
when the fire district annexed,
Mm-hmm.
they had that function and they continued to do it, wasn't that? the
Right,
history?
and we were a much smaller city,
That was
and
the
of this
history.
job, and we
Yeah,
had.
no, I understand that part. There's an obligation that the city has to do that the fire districts do not. Our fire department, before we annexed, was doing that function.
Correct.
When we annexed, we contracted, because they assumed all of our employees, we contracted with the district for them to continue to do
Correct.
those functions.
And at that time,
My question is that, are they still staffing that up just to meet our requirements? Because it sounds like they don't have that requirement
they
anywhere
don't.
else.
In the rest of the county does it for themselves. They're only
So,
doing that for us.
They're being kind to us, they're paying $110,000 for this guy and only charging us 50?
No, they're paying him 138.
Well, 138.
They're paying him
and they're only charging
138.
us 50?
Not even charging us that now.
They're charging us nothing right now.
Well,
Because that's what the interlocal agreement says. And that's why the chief was meeting with me going, this, I can't
why are they
justify
charging
the,
nothing then?
because that's what
That's
we
what they
agreed to in the
originally.
annexation.
That they were gonna provide that service at no cost?
Yes.
It just says they would do it, there's not a,
Yeah, these are the functions, these are all the functions of that department, and they're gonna do all of them. And some of them are our legal
So
responsibilities.
he's
Some,
asking to change the original agreement that we had so that they can now charge us, okay? now I
Correct.
follow.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So why would
Yes.
we wanna do that?
we wouldn't
Because-
want to, but there's a provision in there that says they can ask us to, and we don't have any choice really in the matter.
they could stop doing it.
They
can
could
s-
stop.
They can just stop doing it.
I see.
We wanna play
That
nice.
they would do it. No, I appreciate that. I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
black and white on this thing.
Actually,
We
when
had an
when he
agreement
first
that they were gonna do it, but then there was a provision that said when they're tired of it, they can get out.
when he first came to me, I thought, well, crap, I don't want to pay. If I'm going to pay you, we're just going to do it in house. So that's why I went through this process.
Yeah, no, I
Okay,
appreciate
what
the
could we,
process you went through.
what could we do? What would it cost us to do it in house? So I don't like that they want $50,000. I just agreed when we started having these meetings that the chief and I would get this figured out before our next budget cycles, so that we could both budget for it appropriately, whether we're going to do it in house or we're going to contract with them for this service, which the level of we're not getting what they're paying this person. He needs to
No, I
get some
appreciate
additional
the need to get
training.
certification, but then I guess the next question is, I just wanna make sure that what we're paying them to do is something that is unique to the city's requirement and not what the district provides everywhere else.
It isn't.
So-
The other thing that I think we have to be conscious of is, they can, even if we put the agreement now, as costs escalate, they will ask us for more.
Correct. This is a
And-
short. This is a
Correct.
stopgap.
This is
And-
just opening the barn door.
Right,
Mhm.
and we are losing control. I mean, we don't have control of that. So I think long-term, we need, if our growth continues, we need to look to the in-house solution and have that person do more work. But I'm not willing, like you, to spend the extra $40,000 to do that immediately. That doesn't make sense.
Well, and one of the provisions in their new interlocal that isn't, one of them, they weren't going to indemnify us, and I said, if we're paying you for it, you're
Yeah.
indemnifying
Yeah.
because we're questioning some of the work that we're getting from this person, and we're working through that process, but.
Okay, we
I'm-
can't have that. We have to have, yeah, we have to
Yes.
have quality control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The indemnification and who was responsible for this work had come up prior
Mhm.
to
Because it's not in the current
fire
agreement.
chief coming forward. There was a discussion
Mhm.
way early in 2015 that Nick had run in across and
Okay.
said, we're relying on this work, but they're doing it and we're responsible
Yeah.
legally. And so it
Correct.
started some time ago. So this clears that up.
And my memo, he verbally had told me a number of 180,000. I just got this in the last day
So it's-
from the chief. And he was reluctant to provide it for John's reason. He goes, I don't, he wanted to give it to me verbally and not in writing, because he's concerned that, from, public perception on his
Right.
side, why is he
Right.
giving this service away?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
so anyway, so that's, I just wanted to share with you where I'm at in this process before I continue to negotiate an interlocal that I'm gonna bring back and surprise anybody that we're gonna, what these costs are. And back.
But I do like the idea of paying him per review or per application or whatever.
He hasn't said
permit,
yes to
whatever.
that, but I have planted that seed. And if they're not willing to do that, I think sooner versus later, we want to shift to our own employee, because I don't want to pay them a lump sum for.
Right.
If there's other issues like fire flow testing that they're currently doing that they don't want any part of anymore, that's a building activity. And when I talked to Thomas Hunter about this, he said, we will, so what's gonna happen is, so John's gonna build a subdivision, and they're gonna, build houses there. They need to know what the fire flow at the hydrants are. And if it's a big subdivision, the developer's always gonna do that because they're adding onto the system. If it's 3 or 4 houses, they might not be adding a fire hydrant. And if we have the data, just provide it. Currently, the fire district is testing for that, and it's really a development activity. But if we're going to make this change, we need to implement a pass-through fee. If we have the data, we'll share it. If it's data that needs to be ascertained, then we need that developer to pay for that, and it's not an expensive proposition. It's just it's not another additional expense we want to incur. Another thing that we've talked about and we're in agreement is this person that we have is probably qualified to review smaller sprinkler systems, but systems that have pumps and where they refer to as pre-activation, these larger systems, something like what was put in Les Schwab, probably about that size building and bigger, that we should be using an outside peer review. They lack the technical expertise.
Well, we can be guaranteed right now St. Vincent de Paul won't be able to afford that.
So just, and they're gonna be through this anyway, and this is something we're talking about implementing in January 2017.
Okay.
But that should also be a pass-through fee, that these are very technical systems, and we don't want the wool pulled over our eyes on these issues. Another thing that was pointed out in here is that this interlocal agreement was open-ended, and there's an RCW that says that it can't be, and county's still gonna do the fire in depth. And then lastly, the original interlocal spoke to if Station 31 was never used as a fire station, it reverts back to us. The new interlocal's silent on that, and we want that language back in there. As
Yeah.
long as they're operating a fire station there, it's theirs.
Yeah.
The moment they don't,
It's ours.
it's ours. And then I just have a couple quick good of the orders here. We had 2 kickoffs yesterday. One, unless you have any questions on this.
No, but I have a good of the order too.
We had a kickoff yesterday with Rice Fergus,
Okay.
and they're working on, and we recognize they're just giving us if we go to replace the siding on this building, beyond that, if that's what their recommendation is, we know we've had water intrusion into the building. We're beyond the scope of what they're doing right now. We're gonna want to expose some offices and determine that we don't have bigger issues inside the walls, and to confirm that or prove that there is. But that'll be a different step with a different contractor. This is more evaluating the exterior of the building and our space needs.
Okay.
So this is step one. So he was very clear about that, and wanting to know if we wanted to have that information in this step one, and Mark and I agreed. One, we need to know overall cost of the exterior, and we know that we'll need to take another step, and before we award contracts, to know what's inside our walls. So that meeting happened yesterday, and we had a kickoff yesterday with Sitel. So that's we're moving forward quickly on that, and the first order of business is the Wi-Fi that's down this morning, because I was trying to download my stuff,
They
so.
had they had a fella, their engineer with them for the Wi-Fi.
Cool.
And then lastly, Titus lease, I may have to pull that tonight. There was one point we're stuck on, and it's an out clause. The version we've kicked it back and forth about 3 times, and this one piece we're stuck. He wants all the control, and we at least every renewal period want an out at a minimum. So there's 2 different versions right now, and yesterday when I sent it back this last time, and the reasons for us is we could have some sort of an action that forces us to do some mitigation, and I would hate to have to buy out his 15-year lease with
Right.
13 years left, because we need to do something along that shoreline, and he controls it. So we need something that allows us
Some protection.
some protection,
Yeah.
and that's where we're stuck right. And we're in the driver's seat because he doesn't have a lease right now.
I was gonna say, we own it.
We don't. So, but I'm trying. Mr. Diener and I had a conversation yesterday. He doesn't want to do this lease. He wants us to do another park along there. And I said the timing isn't right now. We can't afford to, and 2, we need to negotiate an easement on the other side, and it's a time for us to be playing nice with this.
I suspect that Councilman Chang may want to put
Yeah.
there too.
Yeah, and someday we may, but right now that isn't what we should, in my opinion, what we should be doing.
The good of the order I had is just to talk about Tremont again. And once we got the scoring back from the regional last from PSRC, that's going to be, I shouldn't say challenging, but that's going to take a lot of work for us to get any money there. And so we have to think about bonding. I mean, that bonding amount may be higher, and consequently the debt service may be higher. And we as a council and as a city have to understand that if we want any funding, any opportunity for funding from PSRC or TIB, we're going to have to get those traffic impact fees in.
No, you mean not traffic. We already did a traffic
Or,
impact.
excuse me, the license
tabs.
tabs, the car tabs, because I think that's going to be an element in any decision. So, I don't know, I have concerns about that. I wanted to bring it up at the finance, because when we've looked at this bonding, I know that we were all hoping, in my mind, it was an $18 million project. I saw $6 million coming out of PSRC, $6 million coming out of TIB, and $6 million coming out of the city, that being a third, a third, a third. That is probably very unlikely. And so we need to start thinking about that. So our cash flow is really gonna get tight. It is truly gonna get tight when we look at
Jail bills.
the jail bills, when we look at a lot of these other things, even the park maintenance. We're doing good things out at the McCormick Village Park. We want to keep that up. We've got the DeKalb Pier going in. And our Van Zee Park is being used more. I know the neighborhood at Paul Powers has some expectations since we brought that up. So that parks, we're going to have to be putting more money into parks just to maintain them. And what I can see is just a lot more money, and I wanted outgo. And I just wanted to make sure that when we do this, if Tremont is truly our number 1 priority, which we have said legislatively it is, and for the city it is, then we're going to be bonding more than we thought, I believe.
8 to 10 million is my guess estimate versus 6 before.
Yeah.
So it's more an issue, it's not so much cash flow as it is just flat budget.
It's affordability.
It's
Yeah,
affordability.
Yeah. Because the cash flow, we could borrow from our other funds to deal with
Right.
cash flow, but it's more
Yeah.
being able to pay
Debt
it
ser-
back.
It's debt ser- it's debt ser- it's debt service.
service.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's a debt affordability question,
Right.
take the project,
Very much so.
just take how much could the city reasonably borrow and expect to pay back?
And only,
What level?
you know, the traffic impact fees, we have to remember, it calculates how much goes to each project. We can
Correct.
only take 1 million of that traffic impact fee and put it to Tremont of our 18. You know, it's not like we can continue to milk that cow to pay
Right.
for Tremont. It is gonna pay for our other projects, but we're gonna have match that we've gotta come up.
Yeah.
Well, the same thing when we do the license tabs, the money that, if you compartmentalize things, the money the 200,000 that we would get for the license tabs, it has to go to repair those roads that the people are driving in. And it will just free up a like amount to debt service out of our,
Existing
what?
street fund.
Which is just nothing more than an allocation of property tax.
yeah.
That's right.
I mean, we can, and you know, we've got a healthy REIT balance. I mean, and we can use, that's one-time revenue though.
Yeah, but we,
to tap
yeah,
that
what
we're
I'm
gonna
saying
have.
is that, you know, I had some hopes of, you know, how financially that was gonna come out.
Yeah.
Right. There was
Yeah.
a disappointment.
Mark has
Yes.
a conference call today, and
Yeah.
it's trying to convince, you know, that the argument we're trying to make is that the state of the money, the pool of money that comes in, the state carves 60% right off the top.
Correct.
And then it gets carved up and pieced out.
That's not gonna change the cycle.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But the argument he's making is that Bainbridge Island and the state's, you know, dipping into our bucket after they've already carved 60% off for that Bainbridge
And we
Island.
get to dip into it again.
And then dipping into it again, and Mark's saying that's wrong.
Yeah, because that's the
that-
state ferries. Bainbridge has partnered with the state ferries.
And his argument, whether or not, I don't think Bainbridge Island's gonna wanna give it up though. And so his argument is we need to kick that project to the curb. Our project and transit project are very, you know, they're one apart, they're, you know, in the scoring, and his argument is gonna be to split the allocation between those two, the geographic equity argument. So
And
that-
you never know what what they're gonna see as a dollar for geographic equity
Mhm.
either. The other thing that, and I don't know where in the scheme of things, but when the countywide list came out, which you saw, Tremont's not on that contingency at all. We need to get Tremont back on that contingency list. Even, you know, and just leave it there until we're done with it.
Mhm. Yeah, they think they funded us, so we're, you know, we'll move it off, but yeah,
Yeah.
we're not funded completely.
Yeah.
So we may need to pick another meeting.
Off on that 1.6 million.
28.
Yeah, they gave us the 1.8 and then they took us off the contingency list for any more money.
It's
Oh,
169.
didn't realize.
It's not 1.8, it's 169, 1692.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
right,
it
it
is.
is,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's-
almost 1.7.
It's almost 1.7, and I don't want to say it was a mistake, but the way the city put the ask in, out of the regional money, we put an ask in for 8 million. And out of the countywide, we put an ask in for 3 million, okay? As an example, the city of Paulsbo has a project on Knoll Road, and it is an $8 to $10 million project, I can't remember. For their countywide, they put in an ask for the full amount, and regionally, they put in an ask for the full amount. So out of the countywide, they're getting 3.9, just under 4 million. We ask ours differently.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Assuming we were gonna score well on the other side.
Mhm.
And
Correct.
the other rub too on those projects that are, and they're mostly in Seattle, they're design and right of way.
Right.
There isn't a construction project, I don't think, ahead of us. Of
Yeah, there's a
significance.
lot of good arguments for us, and as I understand, the way the RPEC discussion will go, and that's this Thursday and Friday, that they do their CMAQ funding separate, of which we do not qualify for any CMAQ funding. So that when the STP funds come up, a lot of the projects ahead of us will have already received some CMAQ. And people think that this is a huge amount of money, but in that STP pot is only $26.5 million to start with. So if, you know, if Kitsap can get 5 to 6 million out of that,
That's a big chunk.
that's a huge chunk. Usually we're only getting 2 to 3 million. So even if somehow, by the grace of God, you didn't get any money and we got all of it, it's probably gonna be $3 to $4 million at the most.
It's gonna be significantly less than we thought.
Yes.
And then we need to start planning for that, for what that bigger number looks like.
Right.
28th.
Is that is a June number.
Mhm.
What day of the week is it?
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. There's an appointment in my calendar that I don't know what other people have access to my calendar.
Well,
I'm available.
it's the 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the day I like having the meeting the day of our council
Yeah,
meeting. That works, yeah.
So we'll plug it in and see how long it stays.
I'm planning on this morning, just to get a flavor of what's going on the court, is go up. Court starts at 9:30 this morning.
Is the meeting over?
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.